let me ask you this. If many people that you work with, road agents, fellow employees, officials, referees, people in a similar position, just a little under you, official-wise, if they told you not to do what you're about to do, but you decide to do it anyway, and it ends up doing exactly what those protesting you not to do it felt it was going to do, and that's make you and them, and by extension the company you work for or own, look foolish, how would you react to that? What would be your, I guess you could say, reply to the criticism of everybody saying you just made yourself and your company and everybody that works for you look foolish? What would be your reply? What would be your reaction? What would be your rebuttal? Honestly, your rebuttal, your reply should be, coming out and saying you were wrong. You shouldn't have done that, and that you were just doing it out of spite. You were doing it out of anger because a former employee, colleague, went out on a show and basically, from their point of view, told it like it is about working there and working with you. So that's what you would do. That's what I would do. I would basically apologize and admit I did it out of spite, at a very vengeful, I guess you could say, what's the word I'm looking for? Very vengeful vileness towards the former colleague. But that's not what Tony Khan did, no. You see, a lot of people, those within AEW, those outside of AEW, everybody told him, and everybody spoke their minds and said, Tony, it's a bad idea, don't do it. But he didn't listen. And last Wednesday night, he showed the footage. He showed the footage from All In 2023 of CM Punk and Jack Perry. And the reason he showed it was to garner interest and intrigue into Dynamite, and by default, or extension, AEW Dynasty, which is this Sunday. Which, by the way, nobody even knows is going to happen. Yeah. Nobody is aware that Dynasty is going to happen. Nobody's aware of it. Well, according to some, they're not. And the card looks like it could be one of the best in-ring wrestling cards all year. And it's basically got a major story a lot of people are invested in, if you follow the AEW product, of Swerve Strickland on the verge of becoming the first black AEW world champion. That's if they follow through on it. But nobody's talking about that. Nope. All people are talking about is the footage that Tony Khan decided to put out there. Because why? Because he was upset about what CM Punk said on the MMA Hour, with Ariel Helwani. That's why he did it. And now he's trying to interweave it into the Young Bucks FTR match, the ladder match at Dynasty. Basically trying to say, hey, it's the fourth match in the series, and this is why it's happening, and this is why the Bucks lost. And it's like, people are hearing that, and they're like, BS, Tony. We know why you did it. We know why you did it. And here's the thing. He's justifying it in a recent interview, as that being the reason, as well as the fact that it did drive intrigue and investment into the product. Oh, yeah, it did. Oh, yeah, it did. But now you, excuse me there, getting over a cough. But now you have the go-home edition of Dynasty, Rampage, and Collision. The go-home edition of Dynamite, Collision, and Rampage. Did I say Dynasty? I do apologize. I meant Dynamite. But like I said, you have the go-home edition tonight, right now as we speak. And, you have the go-home edition of Rampage on Friday and the go-home edition of Collision on Saturday to sell people on the Dynasty pay-per-view. Because right now, they don't even know it's happening. They don't. You have a great card, but nobody knows it's happening, according to some, because all they're talking about is the CM Punk Jack Perry footage you showed. And instead of talking up of how great the pay-per-view is going to be and how you got some great matches with storylines interweaved into them, instead, what are you talking about in the interview? Not just, justification of why you showed it. not only trying to say, oh, it did drive interest and intrigue into the product. No, you're also talking about the reaction that Jack Perry got this past Friday at New Japan's Windy City Riot in Chicago. Which, by the way, some people say he didn't even get that big of a reaction like Tony Khan is making it out to be. It's like he just doesn't want to admit when he was wrong. And by not doing so, it makes him and it makes his company look bad. Heck, it makes Adam Copeland, formerly Edge in WWE, look like a fool for going out and doing that rah-rah speech 2 weeks ago. I mean, look, Tony, if you're mad, just come out. Just come out on Dynamite. Just come out on Collision. Heck, come out on Dynasty in front of the world and basically say that, yeah, maybe you were, and just admit it. Just admit that, yeah, you were wrong in showing the footage. But be a man, Tony. Be a man and say that the reason you did this is because you're upset that CM Punk said what he said, and you're not going to stand for it. Why don't you just admit that? Just come out and say you did it because you wanted to show that CM Punk was, in your eyes, lying about what happened, and you're right. Why don't you just say that? You know why he doesn't say it? Because, again, people are more likely to believe Punk than Tony Khan. That's the issue. That's the issue. And, again, I go back to what I truly believe what this really is. I believe what this really is at the end of the day is he's not just upset about what CM Punk said on the MMA Hour with Ariel Helwani. No, it's not just that. It's not just that. You know what it really is, in my opinion? You know what I think it really is, in my opinion? I think, and I've said it before, I think he still hasn't gotten over the fact that he no longer has CM Punk. I think he's gotten over the fact he doesn't have Cody Rhodes anymore. I mean, you can't tell me he wasn't watching the end of WrestleMania Night 2 on WrestleMania Sunday. You can't tell me he wasn't watching that, seeing CM Punk holding up Cody Rhodes' hand in victory after he won the championship. You can't tell me that didn't eat him alive. Because it did. It ate him alive. You can't tell me it didn't. And that's why I think he's reacting the way he is. Because he knows that Cody Rhodes moment could have been his had he played his cards right. But he didn't. But he didn't let that happen. No. Instead he decided, you know what, Cody, I'm not going to make you champion. I'm going to keep Chris Jericho champion. It's like he had the opportunity and it was right there. And then for him, on top of that, to see CM Punk basically holding up the hand of the guy that used to be a former EVP for his company, who is now the champion of his rival company, for him to see CM Punk doing that, basically 7 months after Punk, left, after he quit, or as he put it, fired him, you don't think that sticks in his craw? Of course it does. Because I don't think he really wanted to fire CM Punk. I don't think he did. Because here's the thing, Tony Khan is the kind of guy that instead of firing someone like Punk after he lunged at him and called him a clown and said he called him a effing clown and that he quit, Tony Khan is the kind of guy that if it wasn't for the disciplinary committee getting after him and Bryan Danielson reluctantly saying, yeah, you're going to have to let him go because if you keep him here, it's going to cause even more trouble. Honestly, Tony didn't want to do it. I don't think he did it. I think he honestly didn't want to do it. I mean, when you hear that Bryan Danielson, a.k.a. Daniel Bryan, is the one that said, hey, you need to do this. I mean, he's basically for Bryan to say, hey, you got to do this. Even though Punk's my friend, Frill Brooks is my friend, you got to do this or else it's going to cause trouble. I don't think Tony really wanted to. I think Tony wanted to keep CM Punk around. That's my honest opinion. That's why he's acting the way he is. He's upset that the guy he did not want to fire is now with the competition and is now speaking out about how terrible AEW was for him and how the guy that runs it is not even a real boss. He's just a guy that's a fan, a nice guy, and that's it. You don't think you think Tony Khan isn't bothered by that? He is, because he's looking at a guy that he didn't want to fire. And now that guy he didn't want to fire, despite him wanting to quit and calling him an effing clown, Now that guy is going out there and basically living the best life of his career as we speak, having more freedom than he's had before in a company that he didn't have it in prior. It eats him alive. It eats him alive. It does. To know that CM Punk is now working for a guy that he despises in Triple H, Paul Levesque. And that's why he's doing this. He's not doing it because he wants to prove CM Punk wrong and everything. No. He's doing it because he's upset that he doesn't have CM Punk anymore. And because of the fact that he had to basically let him go. He had to fire him in his eyes. And he didn't want to. Even if he had cause for it, he didn't want to. You could tell he didn't want to. Because I can tell you this right now. If Brian Danielson, if he wasn't on that committee, I don't think Tony Khan would have fired CM Punk. He would have kept him still on the roster to this day. He would have. He would have kept him on the roster despite CM Punk not wanting to be there anymore. And Tony Khan, being obsessive as he is, would have been like, no, Punk, if you don't come, I'm going to sue you. You're contractually got to be here or else I'm going to sue you. He would have basically found ways to get CM Punk back on television, whether Punk wanted to be there or not. And you know it. Everybody knows it. And that's why Tony Khan doesn't want to admit he was wrong in what he did. He doesn't want to admit the truth as to why he did what he did. It isn't because of the fact that he wanted to interweave it into the Bucks and FTR storyline. No. It's not because of that. It's not because he wanted to drive investment and intrigue into Dynamite, Collision, Rampage, and by extension, the Dynasty pay-per-view this Sunday. No. He did it because of the fact. He did it because of the fact that he's upset that the guy he did not, and keyword emphasis here, did not want to fire, is now working for the enemy in his eyes, working for someone he despises, and basically by basically working for them, is now allowed to take shots and tell it like it is about working there. And it eats him alive. And then on top of that, he's seen one of his former EVPs closing out the 40th WrestleMania as the new WWE champion, and thus being officially knighted the new face of the competition. You don't think that eats him alive? It does. That's why Tony Khan is not all there right now. Because again, the image of Punk raising Cody Rhodes' hand at the end of WrestleMania 40 pretty much tipped him over the edge, along with what Punk said on the MMA Hour. It did. Because to him, those are his wrestlers. To Tony Khan, those are his superstars, not WWE's. And look, everybody has said it, and I will admit, give credit where credit is due. If it wasn't for AEW being around, Punk probably wouldn't have came out of retirement. If it wasn't for AEW being created, Cody Rhodes, alongside what he did outside of it, in New Japan and Ring of Honor and so on, Cody Rhodes wouldn't be where he is right now. So give credit where credit is due to Tony Khan and AEW. But it's time to let it go. It's time to let, leave the past in the past and move forward for the future. But he doesn't want to do that. He doesn't, because of the fact that he's obsessed that, a guy that was his EVP, basically his second in command, is now the face of the competition, is now the face of the competition run by his sworn rival and enemy in Paul Levesque. He's upset that, that's a reality now. And he's also upset that the person that he wanted in the company since the beginning of AEW is now also over there and raising his head. I mean, it is blowing his mind out of his head. We'll put it that way. He is basically blowing his brains out of his mind, blowing his brains out of his skull right now. That's what it's doing. That's why he's losing it. That's why he's making these irrational, decisions. That's why he's saying the things that he's saying, and not being a man and admitting the truth. I guarantee you, his father is probably listening to what he's saying and going like, Tony, just let it go. Grow up. Admit why you're upset. Don't feed into it. But Tony's not listening. Tony's not listening. And now look what he's up. Now look where he's at. Yes, somebody probably did talk sense into him into booking smaller arenas for the weekly shows and the pay-per-views until they grow their audience again. But outside of that, it's like he's not listening. He's not. And it's hurting him. It's hurting him to an extent. I mean, he's supposed to be the boss of the company, and yet he's allowing Mercedes Moné, Sasha Banks, not to compete until Double or Nothing. Now, they're going to probably say, oh, her getting attacked, last week on Dynamite, that's why she can't wrestle at Dynasty. Bull crap. Bull crap. You're the boss. She's the employee. Guess what? You tell her she's going to wrestle at Dynasty. She's going to wrestle at Dynasty. End of story. And if she wants to throw a fit, then guess what? Be a man like you said you were when you fired CM Punk and fire her. But he won't. Because that's his new CM Punk. That's his new plaything, believe it or not. As disgusting as that sounds. But Tony Khan, he has no one but himself to blame. And he doesn't want to accept blame. And that's why you're seeing people react to him justifying, showing the footage that he did. It's like, day by day, AEW is taking one tiny step forward and 100 gigantic steps back, and it's not good. It's not good. And Tony Schiavone, I love Tony Schiavone, great, one of the greatest play-by-play announcers of all time. One of the greatest play-by-play announcers and commentators of all time. Schiavone, I understand you have a job to keep. I understand you don't want to ruin any opportunity of possibly, going elsewhere once your contract's up. But Tony, you can't fool us. We saw this look on your face in WCW, and that look you had last week on Dynamite said the whole thing. You can make all the excuses you want, TS. You can, but we saw it. We saw that same reaction you had at the end of towards the end of WCW in the 2000s. We saw it again here. It's like you're reliving WCW 2000, 2001 all over again, and you don't like it. And I don't blame you. But Schiavone, be honest with yourself. That reaction you had on Dynamite was your legit reaction, your legit reaction. Just be honest, okay? Because you know that the other Tony, the Tony you work for, is making himself look like an ass. But anyway, yeah. Tony, TK, he has no one but himself to blame for this. And you know what? I think people like OTR Central and others have said it best. It's time for him to just let it go. Just let it go. Let it go and not be so obsessed. Not be so obsessed over the fact that he no longer has, CM Punk nor Cody Rhodes. Because I think that at the end of the day, that's what it's really all about. And honestly, the main picture you're going to see probably throughout this is CM Punk raising Cody Rhodes' hand at WrestleMania. And to me, that's what's gotten under Tony's skin more than anything, in my opinion. I think that's what it really is. But let me know what your thoughts are, guys. Comment below, live chat during the premiere if you're watching on YouTube. And until then, I am out.